So welcome back. If this one's going to be a little bit different, this is something that I haven't done in a very long time, years on the channel, is talking about the Sabres once again. Not years, sorry. Talking about Kevin Adams not that long ago, but in terms of something positive, for at least for a game, years for the Sabres here. And we're doing a recap of Game 1, Round 1 against the Boston Bruins. Certainly a all-time moment for Sabres fans, including myself, watched them for the first time since 2011, 14 years without the playoffs, and what a big moment for this franchise because of that. You didn't know how it was going to turn out, and for the most part, it didn't look the best, but the final 6 minutes of the game were absolutely phenomenal for that one, maybe a little bit more for that too, I should say. I should add in that one, but we're going to be trying to cover every game of the series here for the Sabres for Boston, and hopefully it goes on to the second round, and even then we'll be covering until, of course, how far they can go into the playoffs. But again, it's going to be a wild Game 1 that we're going to be recapping for this. Wrote some notes down, give my thoughts on what I thought about the game here. What's going to happen in Game 2, potentially. That's tomorrow. Today recording. It's Monday night at 8 o'clock. So we have the next game that kicks off tomorrow on Tuesday. I think it's 7:30 for the game here. So Game 1 recap for some, before I get into the positives and negatives, overall, my feeling for it is what I kind of basically said a minute ago. It was a roller coaster of an experience. I couldn't imagine the fans that actually attended the game and people who were also on Canal side, what a moment that was for them. What a game it was. And it certainly was a good test, I think, for the Sabres for a team that's so inexperienced of course, not making the playoffs, especially your top guys with Dahlin, with Tage Thompson. Alex Tuch has, of course, been there and done that with Vegas, but certainly has been a few years removed from that. So I don't want to say he's completely lost it, but certainly has been some time removed since his success with Vegas here. And also, too, for the goaltending for UPL. We're kind of curious of how he was going to handle that. Certainly, against we look at the goalie matchup between him and Swayman, who is, for this year, for Swayman being a phenomenal goalie, one of the top goalies in the league. You thought, how is he going to match up against them? And I think overall, even though he did let in 3 goals, I thought he played well. The 3 of them are pretty wonky, some misdirect, deflections, so forth. Especially the first one, Dahlin doing his job, blocking a shot. It just unlucky with puck luck going towards Boston, sets it up for an easy shot for them to score there. The third one is basically just passing act, desperate, shooting it behind them, and it deflects and goes in. Second one, maybe you can kind of blame for a little bit on UPL, but again, overall, I don't think there was any horrible goals he let in there. But getting to the whole point, what I just made a second ago, I think it was a good task for Game 1 of a team that has no experience whatsoever in the playoffs versus a team that has that, especially for the top guys with Swayman, Pasternak, and so forth. And I think overall they played well. It was certainly frustrating for the fans, including myself, for all of us, I should add, because it just wasn't. There wasn't anything going our way, really. They were playing well. I think they were playing their style, and it's certainly as the game progressed that they were starting to get more comfortable, of course, on the ice there. They weren't as falling as they were in the beginning of the game. Passes were getting a little bit better. They were certainly hitting a lot, over 50 hits total in the game. I think certainly over 20. I think 21 or 23 after the first period. So they were being physical, but they were kind of also playing a little bit into Boston's game as well. But I think overall they were playing well the first 2 periods. It was just frustrating that nothing was landing. Swayman was playing phenomenal, and got unlucky for the Sabres where goal in the first period, and then early on in the third period when it got to that point there. But I think overall, I think they really tested well in terms of uncertainty of how they were going to respond and how they were going to be in a big moment like that. I think they handled that pretty well, especially in the third period. Down the stretch there, they just got more comfortable as the game went along. But I think there is a couple of things I want to point towards the negatives real quick before kind of getting into the more exciting part with the third period in this one. First and foremost is the power play. 0-4 on the power play, now 0-26 in April, is unacceptable. And if you are expecting to beat Boston in a series and even progressing further than that, or any team for that matter, it needs to be better. You need to make at least one of them, be 1 of 4. There's even half of that, 2 out of 4. But you need to walk away. When you have 4 power plays, you have to walk away with 1. It's unacceptable that it's 0-4 in the game and 0-26 again as of April. It needs to change. It needs to be done. Because if the dream for all of us, of course, make it to the Stanley Cup, when you face those tougher teams, but how the bracket falls in our favor moving forward, if it's Tampa, Carolina, they're even saying looking at the West with Minnesota, Colorado, Dallas, if you're going to have a chance to win those series, you have to take advantage of that. If they're going to make mistakes like Boston has throughout this regular season with making dumb mistakes and penalties, you have to make them pay. You cannot just keep getting power play after power play after power play and doing nothing. And you saw the fans getting irritated with that. So I think that is one big negative that I can really bash the Sabres on. That needs to be better. That needs to be better. No doubt about that. For there, kind of showing real quick a little bit more of the scores here. Maybe bring it down to the Sabres perspective instead of showing all Boston on that one. So that is the first and foremost, the biggest key thing that everyone should be talking about in terms of a negative is the power play in this one. Another one too is against Swayman. There were some shots that were difficult, and there were some that had nice deflections, even if they didn't go in. I think it was right at the end of the second period. It was the shot that Dome was in front of him where it deflected, didn't go in, but it showed, okay, this is what needs to happen. I felt there was a lot of times in spurts and stretches that there wasn't difficult shots for Swayman. Things were progressing slow, and it was easy for Swayman to pick apart what was going on, following the puck, and then they even mentioned it at one point during the game. All the shots are right in the middle of his chest, or his body is right in the middle of the puck. So I think for the most part, that was part of the frustrating part is, yes, there is luck to it, as you said, what I talk about for the goals for Boston, where, Dowling does his job, it blocks it, and it just falls in the favor of Boston, makes an easy shot. Also the second goal for them as well. Even the third goal, too, at the end, which was meaningless, of course, at that point there for the Sabres being up 2. But there was nothing following for the Sabres, but also with that as well, I don't think they were really putting a lot of pressure on Swayman. I don't. I think there were a lot of times it was just easy for him. And again, why I mentioned in the beginning, a caliber goalie of his standard, an amazing goalie, or elite goalie, however you want to put him on a label for that. That's a cakewalk for him. That's easy. You're progressing the passes and the shots slow. He's going to have enough time to adjust and make easy saves. And you saw it down the stretch in the third period. They were starting to rattle him a little bit and kind of confuse him. The first one, Tage Thompson, he loses the puck. Gets around his pad. Swayman was a second late. They score. The other one too. Tage Thompson's right in front of him. He makes a mistake lifting his pad up. It gets in. You look at Samuelson. Great look, great shot, clean shot for Samuelson. So I can't really knock Swayman in that aspect of it, but certainly again right there, looking right at Swayman, looking at Samuelson, makes a good shot. Maybe if you want to put that more in the favor of, hey, it was just a great placement of the puck by Samuelson, but still at that point there where you kind of just shell shock the Bruins at that point there where they feel like they're at a commanding lead. It just feels so difficult to get to one goal that all of a sudden you pile on there and it goes from 2-0 to 4-2 at that point there. Again, they get the last goal with like 6 seconds left in the game there. But there were moments like that. And then guys, they were kind of ramping things up a little bit faster. They're being a little more chaotic in front of the net there. So I think that's certainly a big thing to take away for going on through the series like that. You can't have plays progressing slowly like that and have these weak, distant shots because he's just going to just save them easily. So I think there needs to be a little more pressure, whether it's just simply just putting traffic in front of the net there, getting a body in front of him, making it more difficult. And I don't want to keep going back to the goals for Boston, but you showed that, especially in the third goal. Even if it was dumb puck luck at the end there, you had multiple bodies, of course, Sabres players in front of him as well, but you had multiple bodies in front of him. It deflects and it ricochets and goes in. Or in the first goal where the first shot gets blocked, but there's people in front of that where they can get an easy rebound and score. Even the second goal too was that they had multiple Bruins players in front of that there as well. So that is something that needs to be fixed. And then moving forward for Boston, it's going to get even more difficult because now you have something. The emotion was high, all-time high, of course, in this game. And you hope that they don't kind of have this drainage now going into game 2 where it's all the emotion went out the window in the first game, all your energy went to that one, and you're going to be deflated going into game 2 for this. So certainly Boston's going to certainly learn from their mistakes and play better. So you have to be a little more make it more difficult for Swayman when you're making the shots there. Has to progress more. And I also assign that too And this happened more so early on in the game, not so, more or less, towards the end. It was more in the beginning of the game. You have to land the shots on that. I think there was too many times where they would take slap shots or wrist shots, and it would just go far wide and not hit the walls. That needs to be a little bit better. And certainly that's just them maybe a little bit angst in the beginning of the game. Certainly a huge big atmosphere moment there for them, big moment for them, for the fans and players. But small things like that too. Again, just be more make it more difficult for Swayman. Kind of tighten up those shots there. But overall, those are really two that I have that are big issues, more so the power play. Also, too, I think the other thing is just transitions. I mean, there are a lot of times Boston put up a wall in the center ice and their blue line, and it made it difficult for Buffalo to get into the offensive zone against Boston. And there was a couple of times where they would chip in over their heads, get to what other times Boston would be easily there. So that's when they have to do a better job trying to find and break that line right there. And they did that, of course, right at the end of the game too, where all momentum went in their favor. And after that one goal, it just opened things up for them. And it just felt like they were unbeatable at that point. They were going to score no matter what. So that's going to be a thing too. They're going to be a staple that's going to happen in this series. Is they're really going to lock down the center line there, because they know they're not as fast, maybe as athletic as Buffalo, more so the speed, I should say. So they're really going to lock it up and make it difficult in center ice, and they did that. And for a most part of the game, it did work, and it kind of stifled them and made them frustrated, not for the players but the fans, where you're kind of just waiting for that goal because everyone wants to have the whole place blow up after they score one goal. And it was frustrating that things weren't happening, and the fans were starting to be slowly taken out of the game until the Tage Thompson goal late in the third period. So that's kind of negatives out of the way, a little bit, kind of ranted a little bit on there. Now getting to the good things here, speed. I think overall, even though I did say they kind of threw the Sabres off their game, it wasn't where they were chasing the Bruins or they were playing. They kind of changed their mentality and made them and played the Bruins game. Now you could say the sense that yes, they were playing the Bruins game because they were hitting a lot. They were trying to impose their will on them. So maybe they played into that aspect of it as well, which is no issue. We've seen the Sabres hit before in this one, so I don't want to say that's a calling card or a staple that they stole from Boston. But certainly, I think overall, when you watch them, they still played the way they wanted to. Again, a little shaky in the beginning because of just maybe the energy was a little high. They were maybe processing a little too much there. But overall, you saw the speed, the way they played the season so far. It translated to the playoffs. It didn't look like they completely scrapped the idea and their identity to play against Boston game one. Overall, they played well, and that the speed did show for that. You look at the sorry, my bad. I can't find my words here. Kept to their game. I was trying to read my notes there. Of course, I write it and I can't read my own writing. Kept to their game. Kind of transition to what I just said a second ago. They kept to their game. They didn't fold and try and chase and play the Bruins game. They didn't try and scrap and immediately try and play losing hockey for that one. They stuck to their game, and maybe again, it was frustrating because it took so long for them to finally get that goal. But once it broke through, it was energetic. It was phenomenal. It was amazing to watch the fans roar. And again, when they panned over to Canal side, the fans freaking out there. You saw at one point the fence of the gate fell over because people, celebrating too much there, but it was exciting to see. And that's something big the Sabres have to stick to throughout the whole postseason, especially when it gets to game 3 and 4, when they have to go to Boston on the road. They have to stick to their game, because I think if they do and they make those small adjustments like I talked about, where they try and find a way to penetrate the Bruins defense when they kind of put a wall up on center ice to their blue line, it's going to be very difficult for Boston to kick it up a notch, because the Sabres have that speed. They have that transition much better than Boston. So again, if you can really, stick to your game plan and tweak a small things there, it's going to be difficult for Boston to really match up against the Sabres. Though, the Bruins do have some positive notes to go off of here, because for the most part, for 2.5 periods, the Bruins were in a good spot. I think even with what I just said, I think overall their playing style, even though they're not fast or as fast as Buffalo, it's still winning hockey. They still find ways to grind it out and win. And again, that showed that for 2.5 periods for that. So certainly, I don't think Boston's game plan right now is horrible. It's not bad. I think it's it's where it needs to be. So I would say the same thing for Boston as well. Just small minor tweaks there. You kind of collapse at that point there, but I don't think that would happen again going forward into the series here. So you did get lucky in game 1 for Buffalo, but it's going to be even more difficult going down the road here. I think they're going to tighten things up there. I don't think you're going to see another collapse like they did late in the third period there. So we kind of have to again stick to your game plan and fix a few things, and you'll be all right with that. Like I said, going back to make it more difficult for Swayman, kind of tighten up those shots there at the net there and being a little bit faster with the passing and the shots. So certainly, but again, overall, I was happy that they kept to their game. UPL was amazing. Once again, I know it doesn't look great because he gave 3 goals, but man, did he make a lot of great saves, especially a few breakaways that Boston had, kind of the whole fumble that Norris had where he just leaves the puck right in the middle of the ice there on the power play, and they take a shot at UPL. Not that it was that close to the net, but still. But I got a few breakaway chances for Boston, especially for Pasternak, and he made huge saves. Like, I was very impressed. I was worried of how he was going to be in this moment, and he stepped up. I think he went no doubt he went toe for toe with Swayman there. And it was great to see, because also too with Alex Lyon not being in the lineup as of right now, I don't know how soon he'll be back. I don't know if he'll be back for game 2 or be available for game 2, or maybe 3 or 4 down the road. But suddenly you were nervous, like, if things don't go well, are we really going to have the chance of Ellis being in game 2? And that's a big moment for him, too, for someone that has a lot less hockey experience in his career. So it was a big moment for UPL. I think overall he played well. Again, I think he really went toe for toe with Swayman, making big saves and keeping the Sabres in it for them to kind of have that comeback late in the third period. Because if he lets in one or two, certainly at least one of the breakaways, it's a different game for this one. And certainly if it was 2 of them, that this game would be over, and we'd be talking about Buffalo being 0-1, Boston stealing a game at home. So that was a massive thing for the Sabres there, is UPL stepping up there. And again, a quick note too, of course, is we have to tighten up that spot. We cannot have the Bruins having breakaways, and then certainly that fumble that Norris had where he kind of half-asses passing the puck back, and then it just stays at center ice or towards center ice. That needs to change. And I'm sure Lindy Ruff and this team will fix that, but certainly that's something to be noted of. But UPL played amazing, no doubt about that. And then getting into the scoring, we look at this here. 3 goals before it got to 4 goals, but 3 goals in 4 minutes and 34 seconds, 4 goals in 6 minutes 46 seconds. That is how deadly the Sabres are. That is how fast, that's how potent this team is, and what they've shown you all season is in a flip of a switch, they can just turn it on, and they showed you that. For the most part for the game, it wasn't that impressive for the round. Was rounded up to like 54 minutes. The first 54 minutes of the game wasn't really their game, and they also, after the first 2 periods, it was for the first time since November that the Sabres went the first 2 periods without scoring. So certainly Boston's game plan was working, and again, they were frustrating the players. They were certainly frustrating the fans because they were just waiting for a goal to happen. And once that one goal went, it felt like it was game over at that point there. Tage Thompson getting the first 2 goals, Samuelson, Alex Tuch with the empty nets. So it just shows you how lethal this team can be when they get going. When they finally get that one goal, it kind of gets settled in there, and they kind of feed off of the momentum, the energy from the Sabres fans. And it's going to be a big thing, too, for game 2, is they're going to have to start a lot faster. You cannot wait till whatever it was, around the 7-minute mark, whatever the first goal was in the third period left. 7 minutes left in the third period in the game there. You can't wait that long. You have to get a goal early, probably, of course, in the first period. But it just shows you how the game just instantly changed for them, where they were getting stifled, and it wasn't working until once that goal happened. When we go from the first 54 minutes, I'm kind of just give and take the minutes here, just make it easier to discuss. The first 54 minutes not being able to do anything for scoring, and all of a sudden in a 6:46 span, sorry, a little under 54 minutes for that one, but in a 6:46 span, scoring 4 goals. It's insane how that is incredible. That is insane of any team, not just some of the Sabres because we're bragging about it because it's my team, but any team to do that. It is insane. And a flip of a switch, they could do that. And then, again, big credit to Tage Thompson, one of the best goal scorers in the league, and he found a way. Talking about your star stepping up, Tage Thompson was one of that. He was the one that set the tone there and broke it through and brought the energy to the rest of the team, where you had Samuelson scoring, you had Alex Tuch getting an empty net or 2, and of course Tage Thompson ended the game with 3 points with that assist there. He helped with Alex Tuch. So it was absolutely phenomenal. It's one of the best moments in Sabres history for fans, especially for younger fans that didn't grow up watching the 07 run. People always go back to kind of that. I think it was game 5 of the Rangers where they tied up late, went in overtime for Maxim Finneganov getting the goal there. I think it was Drury that got the game tying goal late in the game there. So people don't have the memory of that. And I really don't have that memory either of that 05, 06, 06, 07 runs there, even prior to that 299 for older fans. So this is really my first time really enjoying it because I was 11 years old when the last playoff run happened. And I kind of watched the Sabres late. I was more of a football fan, more of a Bills fan. So I didn't really watch the Sabres too much. So I can't really remember the year prior to that would be '09 and 2010, that run too against Boston, that round there too. So I don't have any recollection of that. I do have some memories, of course, of the Flyers game, playoff run there to 7 games, and that was something heartbreaking in Game 7. Some good moments there, but as the years have went on, it's just kind of fading because you're just so far removed, and just you don't remember too many details of it. So this is really, for the first time, really enjoying being captivated, really understanding hockey to watch a playoff game. And what a moment it was. What an absolute moment it was. It's phenomenal. And it's funny to just listen on the radio because they talk about if this went to a 7-game series, that people, if it goes to 7, you don't remember the first game. People are going to remember the first game, no doubt about that, especially for the first game, for the Sabres being back in the playoffs. What a way to start the run, potentially. And we'll see how far it goes. Maybe it ends in the first round. Hopefully it goes to Stanley Cup and wins. We'll see how it is. But what a game to start the tone there and give people heart attacks in that one. But certainly getting your money's worth in it too. I apologize to the fans that it took so long for them to kind of break through and get you guys into the game. But what a moment that was. And we've had that also too earlier in this year, 8-7 against Tampa Bay and other games as well. But what a historic moment this was for Game 1. So, instead of talking on here, kind of criticizing the Sabres a little bit, maybe being a little bit too down on them, they find a way to get the win in Game 1, or steal the win, per se, if you want to look at it that way. 4-3 over Boston. And like I said, as a time of recording, it will be tomorrow at 7:30 on Tuesday. And we'll see how it happens there, too. So, quick thoughts on Game 2. Pretty much all the notes I said. You got to start faster, got to get a goal earlier, make it more difficult for Swayman, faster passing and so forth. Things I basically just went over for the negatives and stuff like that, and what they have to tweak in the Game 2. It's pretty much self-explanatory what they need to go into Game 2 for this one. And it's going to be even more difficult. Like I said, I don't see Boston having this collapse again in the series here. You got lucky in Game 1. Now you have to go out there and you have to set the tone now. You can't be down 2-0, 3-0 if it was at a point, whatever, being down big and having that late surge to come back. It's great that you can do that, but you can't keep relying on it. So certainly for Boston's not going to go away, and they're going to be fixing this problem, no doubt about that. And you still have to go against an elite goal for Swayman. So it's gonna be even more difficult now for this even to happen again. So you gotta set the tone early, set the pace, and have the Bruins chasing you, as opposed to maybe at times it looked like the Sabres chasing Boston at times during the game here. Let the Bruins chase your game, which they can't keep up with the transition, the speed there. Let them make mistakes and be how it was late in the third period there, kind of collapsing and kind of chasing the puck around, Swayman being confused at times of where the puck is going. So it's going to be a big moment here in Game 2, and I can't imagine how the fans are going to react if we go up 2-0. And so I think that is really needed going into Boston for Game 3. Put the pressure on Boston here, because it's not only just for if the Bruins win, obviously it's a win in the series and tying it up, but it's a major win in the cliche of you steal a game away. Now it's home at Boston, and now the pressure's on you to steal a game. And certainly it's the same case too if you're up 2-0, but certainly you have the momentum in your favor. You have Boston up against the wall, being down 2-0, especially if you can go in Game 3 and take that game and make it up 3-0. It's just, again, the pressure just keeps mounting on them, and it could be too much at that point there. So this is even more critical than Game 1 here, is to get this game in Game 2, go to Boston up 2-0. But we'll see how it plays out on Tuesday, and we'll make a recap, of course, after Game 2 and my thoughts, and hopefully we talk about, once again, the Sabres winning this one.